All right. Welcome everyone to today's class. Welcome. And we are going to look at some key things we've not touched based on MongoDB. So we are going to look at pagination, right? And we are going to look at document reference in MongoDB. So how does this tool work? So then apart from that, we're also going to continue with our sockets.io and see how it works and everything that has to do with it. So what is pagination in the first instance, right? Why do we even need pagination in the first place? Now, you might have noticed that, right? In most of the apps you use, as you're scrolling down, it loads up, right? Or some websites before now, when you scroll to the bottom, right? Okay, let's take for example Jumia. When you scroll to the bottom of Jumia, there's always a 1, 2, 3 button, then there's next, there's previous, you get. So then when you click next, it takes you to the next page. You click previous, it takes you to the previous page. Now, the reason for that is because you don't want the millions or thousands of products, for example, to just load up as the user is hitting your website. You don't want that to happen because there are a lot of things that can happen at that point. Maybe your browser going out of memory, or your browser crashing, or it's not proper to load everything at once, right? So that means there will be a need for a pagination, mechanism, right? And there are two ways you can actually do. There are two popular ways you can actually do pagination. Is either you use the limit and and is it page and limit? I can't remember. Sorry, skip and limit, right? They skip limits. They have offsets, skip and offset, right? Or you can use a library, and right, MongoDB provides us with that library to do or to paginate. Okay, so we are going to see how we can actually use a library to paginate. Then, talking about document reference. Now, so let's take, for example, you have, okay, let's use our example. We have a list of users, right? Then we have a list of products, and every product has an owner ID, right? But you want it in such a way that as you're fetching the products, right, the product should also come with the user's detail, right? And it shouldn't just come with the ID, it should come with everything you need for the user's detail, right? And you should also be able to control what comes back. So there should be a way for you to reference that the user's table from the product table, right? So MongoDB allows us to have that reference where you can say, oh, for all products, please add the user's detail. For anywhere you see owner's ID, just replace it with the owner's detail so that the anybody who is viewing the products can also see the owner's detail. For example, on Facebook or on Instagram, while you scroll through posts, the post doesn't just come alone. It comes with the user's detail, right? And comments and all the stuff like that. But mainly the user's detail and the post. Okay. And you notice that if you change your profile picture, it changes on all the posts, right? That's because there's just one central place the user's detail change, and anytime you want to fetch like posts, it just automatically gets the update of whatever you changed. Okay, so that's basic. right? Then after that, we'll also talk about sockets.io. So we'll see some various things we can do with socket.io. I remember saying that in our last class, I would show you how to make it possible to send to emit events inside your controller, right? So instead of your front end speaking directly with sockets.io, they can send a normal post request while your back end does the emitting for the event emission. Okay, so I've already said a lot, right? And I feel we should go into writing the code already. So I'm opening our sample backend VS Code so that we can then start writing something. Okay. Um, right. So I'll reshare my screen. I'll reshare my screen so you guys can see. Mm. You just give me, okay. Let me share it now. Mm. Okay, nice. So we are finally here. We are finally here. We are finally here. And all those things I was saying wasn't actually that difficult. Okay, let's look at it here. So first, let's come to now in this case, right? Because you guys are going to be the ones building the products e-commerce. Well, I'm not going to build the e-commerce. I'm going to do, right? So, but you can always transfer the knowledge you get from what I teach you on this to-dos app to your to the e-commerce, right? So let's see, right? We already did something like, so look at what we did here. We said that every to-do has a user ID. Some people just even name this user alone, right? But I like naming my user ID, although I can always or this will always be the user, right? Once I populate it. Now, this reference is what we're talking about. This references. So what I'm trying to talk about now is I want to explain how referencing works. Okay, so this is how you actually reference it. You say first that the type is a MongoDB object ID type, right? That's type of the user's ID. Then the reference is going to be to the user. Then it is required. Of course, if you don't want it to be required, you could say default should be null. So if there's no user ID, then the user ID there will be null, right? Then how you can, so now if we come back here, let's start this up. Said npm what, let's check. Okay, npm run dev, right? All right, so that has started already. So let's just look here. Let's get a list of to-dos. So let me just try to log in, right? I log in and then I want to get a list of to-dos. So I'll just say hash 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 I'll just say authorization, here that value. Then I want to get the list of I want to get the list of to-dos. So that would be me going to, okay, that would be / to do / okay. So if I come here and just say / to do, let me send that request. Of course, even if you did / to do / it will still give you the same thing. Okay. So now you just see that it's showing it's showing the user ID as the ID. It's not showing it with the user's details. Now let's change that up. Let's see how we can actually make this show the user's details. So now come here, come to your controller. So first we go to the router. This is the router to get all to-dos. I press my control key and press get all to-dos. Right? So it takes us here to get all to-dos. Then what I can do is I'll now say dot populate. Right? Now say populate. Now populate is a method used to, as the name implies, populate a particular property with its reference. Do you get? So once we say I want to populate, now what do I want to populate? I want to populate the user ID property. So I'll then say user ID and save it. So once I do this, right, and I come back to make that request again, we've now found out something different. Something has changed. So now user ID doesn't just come as an ID or a string. It now comes with the details of that particular user. So you have his ID, his full name, his email, his verified password, whatever. Now, doing this is good, but what if you do not want to return everything that has to do with that user? You know, he's returning his hashed password, returning his created ads, his email verified. All these details are not really necessary, right? So how do you restrict what you're returning? Now let's come back to our controller again, to do controller. Now, after you write populate, the next thing you can do is you can then specify the fields that you want to not to show. Okay, so you can now do this. Maybe I now want, okay, for example, if I want to send, now there are two ways you can specify fields. Now you can specify the ones you want to remove. Okay, and you can specify the ones that should only show. Now, let me show you the first way. If I wanted that only username and email, for example, I want full name and email to be the only thing that should be sent, or to be the only property that should be sent on population, this is what I will do. I'll then come here and say full name, space, please don't put comma, only space, then you now write email. Once you do that and save, then you come back and make your request known. Make your request again. You will notice that you only have user ID, then your user ID has an object, is an object with full name and email only, right? So what you're saying here in essence is send me back, populate my user ID, but the user ID should only contain full name and email, which you've done here. Now, the second way to actually populate, right, would be for you to use a minus symbol. For example, right, if I want every other field to come, but I don't want it to show the password field, I want maybe full name, email, updated ads, created ads. Okay, let's take for example, I don't want password, I don't want created ad, I don't want updated ads to show. This is what I will do. I will then say minus password minus created at minus updated at, right? Once I do that and I save, I come back here and make that request again, right? I say to do. Now, if you notice, it comes with other fields, but it doesn't come with which fields. It doesn't come with it doesn't come back with the password. It doesn't come back with created at. It doesn't come back with updated at for all of them. Can you see that? Right? Also, now, apart from just specifying for the populate field, you can specify for the find itself, right? So now, you can also, for example, if we did not even populate this thing at all, if we did not populate it, so let me remove this populate first. Let's take, for example, right, our plain old to do like this, that is just innocent. Oh, I did not save, sorry. So let's come back, let's make that request. This is like our normal to do. For example, what if I didn't want to show created at and updated at in our normal to do? This is what I would do. I'd come here, I would say first, I would put that empty object to denote that I'm not filtering by anything. Then the next thing I want to do is I'll put a quote. I'll say I don't want to include updated ads. I don't want to include created ads. That way, once I do that and I come back here and make the requests, so you notice it only comes back with description, title, and to-dos, right? And it's always going to come back with the ID, always. It's non-negotiable, actually, non-negotiable. Okay. Or, yeah, Prince Will, you can also do it that way. So let me show what Prince Will just did. Prince Will said you can also write it this way. You can remove this and write dot select. You can also write it with dot select that way, right? And then we make that request again. So it still gives basically the same thing. And if you want to check if it's working or not, let's see. Maybe I want to, so let's say I want to include only title and description. So I'll just say title, description. Then we can come back here and query it. You see, it's only showing title and description. And of course, you can chain your request. For example, you can say it should show title, description, and user ID, and then populate that it should remove password. So you might want to do this. You might want to say dot find, dot select, dot populate that way, right? You might just want to list them out so that it will not be one long line of code. Then when you come back here, you make that request again. Okay, what is it saying? It's saying minus password. Okay, so let's see. What did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? Okay, so we to populate user ID, not dot password. So we have to populate user ID and then we are supposed to remove the password from there. Okay. Yeah. So once you search, you see ID, this, so the reason why this didn't come with the user ID is because this one doesn't have any field called user ID. So anytime this happens, maybe you don't have a field coming back, is either that field doesn't exist or that field has a value of null. Okay, so here you see title, user ID, and then the user ID, the object doesn't contain any password. Okay, so that's how to go about this, right? Because you're going to need this in your next task. You're going to definitely need this where you reference tables. Okay. Then also uh so let's go over to pagination, right? Let's go over to pagination. Is there any question anybody will want to ask based on this populator I just showed? Is there anybody that has any question? Okay, okay. So now, whichever you use, whichever one. So Matilda is asking, you are like her question is that I used where is it? It should do. Okay, I used mongoose.types.object.id. If I can also use mongoose.schema.types.object.id, absolutely yes. So I could dot schema dot types. It still has types dot object ID. This would also work perfectly well. Let me save it and show you. So if I save it, I come back here and I make that request again. Nothing changes. Nothing, absolutely nothing changes. So it's the same thing, but so the thing is there are two ways of accessing this type. Is either you use this schema.types.object.id or you use the shorter one, which is types.object.id. It's actually the same thing. Okay. Yeah. So then let's see how we can actually populate. Sorry, did I just say populate? Let's see how we can paginate, right? So let's install a library that can be used to paginate. So we can say npm install mongoose paginate v2. So spoiler alert. Oh, this is not a spoiler alert though, but I haven't used the v1 of this mongoose paginate. So in case you have a question, why is it v2? Or you can try to use the v1. Okay, you can try to use the v1 by yourself, see how it works. I actually like the v2 already, so I'm okay with it. Okay, so Mongoose Paginate v2 is a library that makes it very easy for you to paginate your documents. Makes it very, very easy to paginate your documents. So instead of going to calculate the limit page, do all those calculations, then you now come and apply it, do offset and everything. Calm down. Just use this one. So what you then do is you then come here and say const paginate or whatever I want to call it. Paginate should be equals to require. I spell am well. Spelled it well. So mongoose paginate v2. Then the next thing you would want to do at this point is to register it as a plugin. So you then say you'd say your schema, right? You'd say schema dot plugin, right? So MongoDB allows what is called plugins. So plugins are like aids. How do I put it? Plugins are like add-ons, like something you add uh, to enable or enhance a particular feature that already exists on Mongo, on Mongoose. Okay. Did I say MongoDB accepts plugins? Mongoose as a library, Mongoose library accepts plugins. Okay. So then we'll say that, and we'll say the plugin we want to register is the Paginate plugin. And we have to do this even before we had to do this before we even get to this point. So that's all you need to do actually. You just say schema, Abi. Yeah, that's the name of the schema. Schema.plugin should be equals to paginate. So with this statement here, you've been able to add pagination, but you're not done. You are not done. You have to come back here and do something. Where is it? You have to come back here. And so, for example, wherever you want to show a list, right, and you want to paginate that list, here is what you will do. So you will not use find anymore, right? Of course, let me just show you this. So when you say find and you want to paginate find, you want to do something like skip. Then the skip is like the offset, like how many documents do you want to skip? Then now say dot limit, Abi, dot skip dot limit. Yes. So the limit is how many documents do you want to return after skipping. For example, maybe if the skip is 0, which means you want your, like, it's the first page, then how many, the limit will be like, how many documents do you want to send? Do you want to send 10 documents? You now send 10 documents. So if the person is going to the second page, the skip will now become 10. So which means you're skipping 10 documents. Then it will start sending from the 11th document. Then the limit can be 10, so that it will send the second 10 documents back. But then why don't you just save yourself the stress and then write something like this? Okay. Okay, so okay, this is what I will do. I would comment that, and then I'll come back here and so I'll keep that there so you can always reach it at any time. Okay, you're welcome. So then we can then say dot paginate, right? And then this paginate will accept 2 arguments. So the first argument is how do you want, what is the filter? What do you want to filter your pagination by? How do you want to filter it? While the second thing here is going to be the value for your page and your limits, or your page and yeah, your page and limits. So you then say page should be equals to whatever you want, maybe page 1, limits should be 10. And this will also bring us to another interesting topic. We are going to look at how to use query strings. We are going to look at how to use query strings in this topic. So once we do that, we get all to do's. I save. Let me come back here so that you guys can see. Then we come back here to make that request. Okay, so what is it showing? Errors. Okay. What's the error? What's the error? What's the error? Let me come back here and check. Okay, just so once you query this, it say page is that, limit is that. Let me come back here. Where is it? Oh, I didn't save this. Okay, not even this one. Oh, sorry. I did this in the wrong place. I was supposed to do this in to do, not in OTP. So I'll just copy this, come back to do, uh, paste it here. Then I would also copy this and I'll paste it. Now, mind you, using paginate here, using paginate in this to do doesn't stop you from find. If you want to still use find to query your documents, you can still use it and it will work perfectly well. The only thing that paginate plugin is doing is it is going to enable you to also use this dot paginate, right? So even if you have paginated your document, if you use find on that particular document or that particular query for that document or that model, it will still work. So I think that was the error actually. So let's come back and let's make that request again. Beautiful. Now notice something. It doesn't come back just as a, it doesn't just come back as an array again. It comes back as an object with docs. So docs contains the document that you're querying for, right? It contains all the documents you're querying for. Now, when you come to the bottom, you see something interesting. You see, we have a total of 8 docs. You said the limit should be 10, which means it's to return a total of 10 documents per page. It has a total of 1 page, right? And you're in page 1. The page counter is 1. It doesn't have a previous page and it doesn't have a next page. Then of course, previous page is null and the next page is also null. Okay. Now let me come here and update this. Let me change this from 10 to maybe 4 per page, because I want to be able to see how it is going to react to that. So I make that request. So first we see we have 4 documents. Now we have 2 pages, right? We have a total of 8 documents. Our limit is 4 per page, and we have a total of 2 pages, but we are in page 1. Okay. And of course, you see, we don't have, so the next page is page 2. So if you want to just make it that when the user clicks, maybe you want to create a button that the user clicks next page and it just takes them to the next page. You don't really need to bother doing a whole lot of things. You just, first on that button, you say if next page, or if next page, which means next page is not null, then it should take the user to, it should call the function to take the user to the next page. Then if it's previous page, if previous page is not null, you call the function to take the user to the previous page. Front-end developers, I hope you guys are actually learning. You've learned that one. Okay, so this. Now, how do we now go to the next page and the previous page? How do we then do it? There are actually 2 ways to do it, right? So the first way is by doing it this way. Come here, where is it? In our router, right? You can come here and say // page / limit, right? / page / limit that way. Sorry, I'm putting it in the wrong place again. Okay, so I'll say / page / limit. Do it that way. And then once I update that route. I then go to the controller for that route, and I write this. I say so this is parameter. We've not done query string yet. So we can say req.params. Then the params contains page and limits. Then what you can do here is, now this is important. You rather want to write, if there is a page, then pass int of page, or 1. Then if there is a limit, right, pass int of limit, or 10. Now, this is important in case the person that is querying now goes and types or puts something that is not a number or is not a page or something, right? You should know that, okay, since this is not, or you can even check if if the page or the limit is not a number, things like that. You can check that also, right? So I think you can do that by saying, right. Yeah, it's not a number is equals to false. Because this is going to return a boolean if I'm not wrong. So if this is true, then it means it is not actually a number. So it's not a number would be false, right? So if it's not a number is false, and is not a number, for this also false. So you can even still make it more complex. You can say if page and is not a number. Okay. You would want to do this. Then you also do the same here. So what I'm checking is, does page exist? Okay, if page exists, is it true that page is not a number? If it's true that page is not a number, please don't bother, and just use the default. So once we do that, then we come back and we say /1/4, or let's say /5 to see the change. Okay, so you see, now it still gives us the page of 1 and it gives us the limit of 5, right? So if I go to page 2 and I query it, you see that it has taken us to page 2, limit of 5. Okay, I'm seeing people are, someone just saved my head. Okay, all right, calm down. Other people are also in the same shoes. So let me come back here. Let's come back here. Let me explain this thing in detail. So let's come to our interactive shell. Node. Once you type node and you press enter, it takes you to Node's interactive shell. Then now, let's do something. Is not a number? Is it true that 4 is not a number? It's false, because 4 is a number. Is it true that 20 is not a number? It's false, right? It's false that 20 is not a number, but is it true that hello is not a number. Can you see that? So now it is showing, so it is true that hello is not a number. So now what we are checking here is saying, oh, as far as the page exists and the page is a number, then use the value. But if the page is, so now if the page is not a number, right, it will then use this, for example, it will use the default value of 1, right? So this is a ternary operator. This is where I'm keeping my, sorry, this is where I'm keeping, sorry, I didn't even write this properly. I was supposed to write it this way, but it still worked out. Right? This is the proper way to actually write it. So if this is a page, if the page value exists, what I'm checking here is if the page value even exists, like it has a value, then once it has a value, I'm checking if that value is a number. And I'm doing the same thing for limits. So is your head still, is it still complicated, or it's now understandable? So now someone is asking, does req.param return a type of number? No. So req.params, whatever you pass to your parameter or your query string is always going to come back as a string. It's always going to come back as a string. It is now your duty to convert it to a number. Actually, even if you pass the page and the limit directly without passing it, it will work, because JavaScript will automatically convert it, right? I think that thing is called coercion. It will just coerce that number and use it. Okay, so that's why, now look at this. If I put something like 40 inside here, even if the 40 is in quotes, it is still taken that 40 is a number. Why? It will, what happens before this changes? This 40 is a string, right? But what happens before it even checks if this string is not a number? Is it will try and convert this 40 to a number. If it successfully converts 40 to a number, then it will understand that, okay, yes, whatever you put in here is a number. Okay, so even when I put a string, I quote, and I put 40, it first tries to convert it to a number. Once it cannot convert, it tells you that it's not a number. But once what you put inside this place, this string, is maybe text, you get, it will tell you, oh, it's true that this is actually not a number. Yeah, so that is the reason for this whole thing. That's the reason for this, right? And then, so now you might be wondering, so now you can populate, you can do page and limit. How do you now do, sorry, you can paginate. How do you now do populating here? How do you populate in this case? So now, how do you populate, right? How do you populate? Now, there are several ways to populate. There are like several ways to populate, and I'll show you the ways to populate. Now, this is how you do it. If I want to populate user ID, I'll just say populate user ID. Now, remember, in fact, let me remove this populate and let me query so that we'll see the results first before I populate. Where is it? To do 2 5. Okay, so the user ID is just ID, right? So let's come back here. Let's populate. So I'd say I want to populate user ID. Save it. Come back here. I click populate. Now you notice, right? You notice that it's populates it, right? It populates every detail we want. I know your question. So now how do we select? How do we filter so that it will not return everything? I know your heart desires. So let me show you how to actually do that when you're using populate actually. Okay. So this is how to do it. You come here. Now, in this place you're populating, instead of you just passing a string, you would pass an array of objects. So now this array of objects is going to contain what you want to populate and then what you want to select from your population. For example, I want to populate user ID. So now the value of path will be user ID. Right. Then what are the things I want to select from user ID? So I will now say select. So select, I want to select full name. Just the same thing we did before, full name and email. Finish. That's what I want to return. Once I do that, right? Back here, I've saved. Then I can come back here and make that request again. And you'd see that now it returns only full name and email and the ID. So I remember I told you that you can't actually remove the ID. It's always going to be there. So you have full name, you have email. Um, so that's it. And you can also use the minus sign here. So you can say minus password, minus created at minus at, right? Minus created at minus password minus updated at. Right. Did I save? So minus password minus created at minus created at. All right. So you see, it contains everything minus the password, the created at, and the updated at. So with this method now, right, you can always create two different tables or two different collections, and then you can reference one collection from the other collection. You can say, oh, this property here should reference this particular one, and so on and so forth, right? Uh-huh. So I hope you guys don't have any question. Is there anybody that has any question based on what I've just explained? Okay. Okay. So Matilda is asking, how do those params end up in the URL in a live scenario, or do we have to hard code that? So yeah, definitely you need to hard code that. Like you would send it this way. So from your front end, right? So let me simulate a kind of function that might might want to do this. So let's take, for example, you're implementing your front end, right? So let's just take, for example, you're writing maybe a code to query this from your front end. So maybe let's say the name of the function is on your front end, maybe list um or list products. You might do something like list products, and then inside your list, God, sorry. Inside your list products, you have something like page and you have limits. Then you can then say axios dot get. Then you say your, sorry, you do this, and instead of having those things, you then say page, then you then say limits, right? So anytime if depending on the page you want to call, you then say list products, and then your list products now you then say maybe page 1, 10. or something like this. Okay, page 1 and then and the rest. Then when it comes back, maybe you update a list or something. You get. I hope you understand where I'm going with this. Matilda, I hope you're following. Is there any other person that is not following? You can have something like this, right? Where you write your stuff. Sometimes, right? Sometimes this limit, because this limits might change, right? So there are different ways to actually do it. You can have maybe a place where the user can update the limits. Maybe if you were using something like React, you might do something like let is equals to use state. Then you might do something like 10. Then maybe you say limits and updates limits or set limits. Then you might want to just pass the page alone, and then you might say limit should be instead of the limit coming in as an argument, the limit should come from this. So in case the user decides that, oh, I want to set limits, I want to change the limits, but I don't want to click next or previous, then what you might want to do is you might also want to write a use effects. Also, you might want to say use effects and then monitor the limits, and then say anytime the limit changes, you want to list products. So in case the user now change the limit, the now set the limit to maybe from 10 to 20. Maybe there's a drop down somewhere that once that drop down changes, the value of limit changes, right? As soon as the value of limit changes, this use effect will get that change, and then we'll query to get the list of products and the rest. You guys have taken me to front end already. All right. You're welcome. You're welcome. Then what? Yeah, actually, that's React. So this is not like, should I say, the only way to do it. Okay, this is not the only way to do it. How many of you have heard of Stan Stack? Right? You can actually use Stan Stack, right, to make this kind of queries, right? So Tanstack, if you're using Tanstack, you will not really need to write any use effects. There might not really be any need for. In fact, there will be no need for use effects. You just pass your page and your limits there. Each time the page changes, it automatically makes the request to you. And I also encourage you guys to use Tanstack for your front end projects. They Tanstack query, they Tanstack form, they Tanstack router, right? So you don't really need to use all, right? But if you can use all, you can, tan. So let me type it. Okay, it's TANSTACK, tan stack, tan stack. That's what it's being called. Tan stack. Okay. Then also my personal favorites. You guys, I know you guys, maybe some people here like using Redux. Redux is good. I've used Redux, but I personally recommend using Zustand. So using Zustand is actually very, very simple to use. Like, it's the most simplest state management for front end I've used. It's very simple, very straight to the point. Yeah, for the mobile. So now, for the mobile, right? For the mobile, you can use Tanstack. You can use Tanstack, but Tanstack router doesn't work for mobile now. I don't know if I think they threw it open that anybody can develop Tanstack router for mobile. But apart from the router, right? Apart from the router, you can use what's it being called? You can use Tanstack form, you can use Tanstack query for your React Native, you can use it. Then Zustan works for both web and mobile. Just that on your mobile, you'll be using, is it JSON, one JSON something to store your keys, right? Not You will not use local storage or session storage with Zustand on your mobile. You will use something else, one JSON storage like that. I think it's called JSON storage. Okay. We are not actually doing front end here. Let's come back. We are drifting away from our topic already. Okay. So for Flutter, people, I don't write Flutter, so if people should bear with me, go and find alternatives. Okay, someone is asking React context. So React context, so if you're using context, so okay, which means you provide that context to, you can use, you can use context. You can use, there's how they use React context and React, is it, I've forgotten the other one. Use context and use reducer. You use both of them to create your state management and the rest. But I've done that once and it was really, should I say, cumbersome or kind of not really clear. But I like to stand actually. Okay. Uh let's continue. Let's continue with our back end. Okay, so now first, so we are done with using what's it being called? Um populate and paginate. So now what we want to do is we want to then continue with our chat app, right? And then see how we can make it more interesting. Okay, which means I have to, okay, my post is open. Yeah, thank God. Okay, so let's continue from where we stopped yesterday. The yesterday. The last time we actually had our class. Okay. So now this is what you can do now. Next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I can call sockets.io, right? In any route, in any of the routes here, any of the routes or any of the controllers, and then I can emit an event. So rather than calling it only from inside this place, because kind of calling it inside here to me is limiting. Although you can write, for example, you write your sockets.onMessage, then this message part, you can write it in another file. Let's take, for example, the write it outside here, maybe send message or something like that. Message equals to that. That can be in another file. Then I'll just append the name there. Okay, so once there is this send message event, it will then call send message. Remember that this message could actually be in that file, so you can have your list of sorry, a folder, right, or a file where you put all your or event handlers. Okay, so but that's not that's on the contrary. Now what else, what another thing I could do is I could do this, right? Sorry, uh just give me a minute. Okay, I could do this. So we have IO server, right? And we also have our IO server and we have our HTTP server. Okay, so now we can then say HTTP server dot, okay, sorry, we can say app dot use, right? But we can even do this at the top. It doesn't have to be at the bottom. We can do it here. We can say app dot use, then we say request response next. Then we'll say that res.io should be equals to the IO server. IO server. Then after that, we call our next. Sorry, this is supposed to be RAQ. Now, did you know what we just did? Do you know what this line of code? This line of code is very, very powerful. It's like a video shaker. Now, what this line of code has done is that this line of code has actually allowed us to add the IO server event, right? The IO server event object to our response. So anytime if we do res.io.to.emit, we can emit an event from any of these routes. Okay, so wait, before I even go on, let me ask, is anybody following? Is anybody confused at this point? Because the way everywhere is now quiet once I enter this chat there, it's like people are not actually following. Are you guys following? Yes. Okay. So this is a middleware, right? So this middleware is more like saying, okay, once we reach here, any in our response, in our postman, sorry, that's a postman, in our express IO, sorry, in our express response, right? We want to create a new object in our response IO, but that response would be this IO server. Okay, remember that thing we did now? Remember this thing we did now here? We said request.decoded equals to value. You can use, so this is the thing. It's not by must, you must use response. So whether if you want to use request here, you say raq.io equals to IO server, then you next it. It's still fine. Oh. It's still fine. It would actually work. Just that anywhere you're using it, you have to make a reference to request.io equals to IO server. So with this, right, you've added all the possibilities of calling this IO server from any route, right? From any route of your choice. So let me create okay, so let me do this. Let me create a route. Okay, I'll just call it ping, and then I want to send back phone, but I want to send back an event, right? I'll say req.io dot emit. Should I emit? I want to send a message. So I'll just say send message. Then the send message will be pong response. Pong response. So once I send a ping, I should put that pong response. So let's go over to socket.io where the magic will happen. So I'll first connect remember this thing we did the other time now. If you guys remember, I've opened Postman, I've connected two users sharp. Remember this thing we did now, that we said that in our last class, if you were not in our last class, we made it possible for us to attend like so the same way app, right, has middlewares. This app is coming from Express. Remember, this app is coming from Express, while this IO server is IO server. The same way app has middlewares is the same way IO server has middlewares. Okay. So the same way we also have authentication for our normal Express routes. Is the same way, oh sorry, the same way we have a middlewares in our Express is the same way we have middlewares in socket.io. So what I'm basically doing here is similar to what we did for our Express. I said that, oh, once you send a request header with authorization, we get it, we split it, we check if it is a bearer type of a bearer type of token, and then we verify that token, and if it's okay, we pass that decoded to the authentication objects, right, in sockets.io, and then we call next. So next will then allow this to come down and then run this part. It will be able to run this other part. Okay. Oh, okay. So sorry, Matilda. What I'm saying is that this part, right? This what we've written here is going to allow our IO server, right? Or IO instance, our sockets.io instance to be accessed by any route we want to use, right? To access it, we can access. So for example, this is an example I'm in here. Once you do req.io, you're actually calling IO server. So you can then use the emit or whatever you want to call it, right? So let's go back to Postman. Let's go back to Postman. Just give me a little bit of time. Let me clear this. Clear. Okay, cool. So stop sharing. Let me share. Okay, so let's see how this is going to work. Oh, do you know I still shared my VS Code? So let me stop and let me share my Postman. So in here, let me see. Okay, this connected on 3000. Okay. So I'll say /ping. right? And remember, I've already connected, my sockets.io. I've already connected two users. So, but let's say a random person just sends ping. He receives pong. So let's come back here. Okay. Okay. So nobody actually received that message. Let me see why. Let me see why. Let me see why. Okay. So that's send message. Okay, I think I need to include a to before the emit. So let me share my screen. Let me reshare my screen actually. So that would be a to. So then dot emit, and let me just include two users, or let me include this user. I don't know if he's the only user. So it's going to be an array. So it contains that person. Let me go and find the second user on MongoDB. What did we call this to do? So CFI, okay. Then this is the second user. So I have to always specify who I'm sending it to. Okay, so let's come back to Postman. I'm just hard coding it to show an example. Oh, I, I stopped sharing and still shared the same thing. Okay, so we are back here. Connect user 2, connect user 1, ensure that both of them are listening to the send message events, and then I'll come here and ping again, and hopefully R. Nobody's still getting it. Nobody's still getting it. Nobody's still getting it. Okay, so let me just look. Let's come back to VS Code. Let me look at what I actually wrote before, because that would influence how I'm going to query this. So let's come back here. We said we'll push user ID once there's a message. Once there's a message, we will want to find that user. Okay. So we'll find that person. Okay, which means I'm not just supposed to send, okay, in this case, I'm not supposed to only send a message. I'm supposed to send a user ID and a message. Okay, so I think that's where I actually made the mistake. That's where I made the mistake. So this is what I would do. So I'll do this. I'll say, so let's check here again. what I wrote here was connections.find. So the message itself will come with a user ID and a message. Okay. Okay. So what I would want to emit is I'll remove this part. I'll remove this part. I'll say user ID. User ID is going to be that user ID. Message would be sent from socket.io. Send from socket.io. Okay, but then there's still another way to do this thing. There's still another way which we would actually do. So let's go back to just give me okay. Good. Let me just try it out first to be sure. Okay, beautiful. Actually, the user now receives that request. So let's go to Postman. Let's go to Postman. Right, so we are here. Let me clear all these messages. So this person won't even receive it actually. It's that one because it's not the one we are sending it to. So I came here. What I just did was I send a ping, just ping. We receive a ping here. If I come to user one, so user one receives that user ID of this message sent from sockets.io. You can see that, right? You can see that. So you send a normal request to a route, and then socket.io takes it from that route. Now, so I guess this should be obvious. What I want to actually say now would actually be obvious to a lot of persons, right? So now, if this particular route here was on top here, right? If this route was on top, would it work? Yes or no? Would it work? Okay. One person has said no. Okay. 3 persons have said no. Okay. And yeah, so now it won't work because this is where you're adding sockets.io to the request object. So, and it depends, whatever I want to name it, whether I want to call it raq.sockets, but make sure that if you're calling it raq.sockets, anywhere you're using it, you say raq.sockets.emit, anywhere you're using it. Now, we've talked about this. Now, this is one way of doing your sockets.io, but this is not the standard way. The standard way would be once someone comes in, right? Once someone comes in, so this is the decoded part. Let me close this other part so that we can work more freely. Let me just save this to the controller. I don't know what I changed. So this is a very simple way to work with this. Very simple way. Now, instead of pushing whatever you want to push right there, this is what you would do. You just say, socket.join. Then you join this user ID, decoded.user ID. Put it there. Once you put it there, anytime you say socket.to and then you emit an event to that particular socket ID, it is going to emit the event to that particular person. So Then here we want to do sockets dot leave. Yeah, socket dot leave. So how do we get this? Okay, I think that will still be decoded. That will be decoded dot user ID. That will still be decoded dot user ID. Then you say goodbye. This person will still have a user ID, right? So you can do something like user ID, maybe with user ID, user ID. Beautiful. Then what else am I supposed to do? What else am I supposed to do? I don't need this again. Definitely, I don't. The comments are too much, so let me just remove them. Okay. So let's see. Then the next thing I want to do is, there's no need for me to look for connection again because there's no need. I'm not using connection again. So instead of that, I'll just rather leave it like this. So now, well, the two, right? So now this is what I will do. Instead of saying message dot or user connection dot socket dot ID, I'll say message dot to. So which means the message I'm sending, so the message will contain to and miss property. So that's what this message will I'll call it payload, so that I won't confuse you too much. The payload will contain the so this is, who are you sending the message to, right? So if I'm sending a message to you, right? Not that my ID is already registered, your ID is registered, then I'll send message to you, and then you will receive. So with this, it'll be quite easy to now like start messaging service on messaging platform, however I want. Okay, and then with this, so if you're going to send a message, so instead of saying user ID and message, you want to say maybe to socket dots to. RAQ dot body dot to, something like that. Then you send your message. Then maybe your message. So RAQ dot body dot message. Please don't be confused at this point. Please don't be confused. If you have any question, just ask. I will try as much as possible to answer. I know that this sockets.io is actually confusing to a whole lot of persons. Okay, so let me explain what is going on again. Okay, let me explain what is going on. First and foremost, we have this part, which is a middleware. This middleware is used to authenticate a particular user. So if you don't supply an authorization token, right, it will just tell you you need to supply an authorization token. That's after checking this, it finds out that it did not supply an authorization token, it won't allow you to go further. But if you supply an authentication token, it will try to verify it. Once it verifies it, it calls the next. This next will call what is next after it, which is this part, server.on connection. And then you can receive, remember that we assigned the value of what we decoded to this variable or this object. We can also receive it here. We can also receive it here. Then the next thing we want to do is, if we know already that inside this decoded, we have a user ID. Remember, all those times we're connecting, it contains user ID, it contains email, it contains role. In fact, there are a lot of things. If you don't even want to use user ID, you can use email. You can use email. I can make this that when you're sending, in fact, I think I should actually do it that way. So instead of sending it to this particular user ID, you send it to their email. I want it to be simple for you guys to understand as much as possible. So I'd say here should be email. Then even when you're sending this, your to will also be the email of the person you're sending to. This to will also be your email too. So now doing that, right? Now, once there's a connection, it will just tell you, oh, welcome, then your sockets, the ID and your details. Then what this does here is this one adds you to a room, or what you call a group or something. So it's more like you alone, like a group. So why we are adding you here is, if we want to send you emit an event to you, for example, we will just refer to you by this email or by whatever we set you as here. You understand? So if we are setting email here, anytime we want to send an event, we can say we are sending that event to this particular email. So let's see this thing in action already. Let's see this in action. Sorry, so this place we say send a message, payload. So payload will be payload.to, that way. Then here would be request.body.to. So let's see. Let's see all these things in action. So let's come back here. Let's connect user 1. Let's connect user 2. Honestly, I don't know the difference between their email now. But let me see. Let me try to emit an event. So the event name is so wait. Okay, so I'll do this using the route. So what did we have here? So remember that in our postman, we had ping, we had to, and then we had a message. So maybe we could just say hello to the email. Don't forget that victor@gmail.com. Let's send that. Let's come and check. Okay. So you see, the user one is actually this person. He receives that event. So let me try using, I think the second user should then be Ukok Junior. So that would be Ukok Junior. We send that, then we come to the user two. You see now user two also receives the same thing. So now what we can do is we can now use our normal route to be sending requests. So instead of using sockets.io to emit the event to a particular person and the rest of all those things, we can actually send it, to using our normal route. Okay. I don't know if it makes any sense to anybody. So this is what I can do. Once you emit that event or once you emit that message, right, I can save it on the database. I can save it on the database um and send it to the user that is concerned if the user is actually online. Okay, so let's see how we can actually do that. Let's come back here. So basically what I've done is, okay, you can send it to this person, this particular person, and then this particular person can receive it and the rest. You can send a message to a particular person. And you can also send it to yourself because it's the backend that is actually receiving the message. So the back end can send a message, can emit an event to the user that is, that's maybe send the post request also. So let's create a small chatting app, shall we? Let's create a small chatting app. But then rather than use email, rather than add email to be listening to, right? I rather want to listen to an ID so that I can save that ID. I'll just say that ID. Now, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. So all the magic will happen inside here. All the send message magic will happen inside here. All how let's do it. So the first one is chats. The second one will be messages. Okay. So now, messages is the list of messages. Like, sorry, let me start with chat. Chat is the list of people that you're chatting with. Do you get? So chat is a list of people you are chatting with, whether it is you and so it's so that chat is between you and that person, you and that person, you and that person. Then message are like children of chats. So I think that's the simplest way for me to explain it to you. You have chats, they have messages for that particular chat. I just hope you guys are following. I just hope you guys are following. So I think once I finish doing this, you would understand better what I'm trying to do. Once I finish doing it, you will understand better. Don't worry, it's looking somehow. So I'm copying this because I don't want to start writing it again. So let's start with chat. So the chat now, right? The chat will have um So the chat would be something like this. You'd say users, maybe users chatting, because so this would be an array. An array. This should contain the IDs of the two users that are chatting. The IDs of the two users that are chatting. So if I'm chatting with Matilda, for example, this user's chatting is going to be an array that contains my ID and what's it being called? Matilda's own. Okay, wait. Sorry, I'm thinking about this. Okay, so there are different ways we can actually work on this. I don't want to use the complex way. We can actually have one chat and so we can do this. I think we can do this types with mongoose dot no. Okay, let me just make this simple actually. Let me just make this simple so I don't confuse people. I'll just say mongoose dot types dot objects ID. This will reference users. Sorry. That will reference users. Then, what else? Maybe you can have something like last message. You can have something like last message is a string. Then you can have something like last message sender. Last message sender could be last message sender could be it still be this. Then you can check if you can maybe show an icon if the last message contains should I make this complex? Last message sender don't worry. I think I should just keep it here. Let me not add things that is going to make it too complex. Okay. Then we have this instead of OTP, this will be chats. So we have chats, right? So that's our chats, and then these are message. So a message now will have a we'll have user IDs because user IDs. So user IDs would be an array, and sender. The sender of the message is going to be a user ID also. So you have a message, you have a sender. You can have something like file or files, something like that. Then you can say this should be an array also. So that would be like an array of maybe an array of links to that file. In case you're sending a chat, we could say default should be null. Sorry, default should be an empty array. Okay. I think this is quite basic. Oh, sorry, the message itself. So the message itself, okay. So let me start with explaining chats. Of course, chats is like that list you see with the people you're chatting with, right? So the instead of users chatting, right? There's a reason I didn't or normally it's not even supposed to be an array, it's supposed to be um mm, so it's supposed to be I like I like to call this me. I like to call this um the other person. I would like to call this me. I would like to call this the other person, right? So me is actually me, right? The other person is the person I'm chatting with. The last message is the last message the person sends to me, or the last message I send to the person, anyone. Then this last message sender is going to be either me or last message sender. Yeah, it could be either me or the other person. So, but this one though is not really even necessary. It's not really necessary. This last message sender will make sense if you want to show if the message was read or it was not read. So you can say last message is me. Then if it is me that sent it, then you should not show if it was read or unread. But if the last message sender is the other person that I'm sending the message or that send the message to okay, that I'm sending the message, then that person should see it was read or unread and the rest. But we are not going to do that read and unread thing here because we don't actually have a front end. So I think with this we are actually okay. We could maybe have something like contains images or yeah, we could do something like that. We can have something like contains file, contains files. So this one you could use to show an icon if it contains files, maybe something like that. Type of boolean. Um, what is boolean? Default should be false. Okay, so I've done that. Then the message, let's come back here. The user ID is chatting, the sender, the message, the files, if there are files. So we've done this, right? And then let's come back and write the logic for this whole thing. Let's come back here. So I'll use this ping as my message. What's it being called? Oh, rather than, so let's come back here, sorry. In the chat, instead of having last message, right, as a string, sorry, as a string, you rather want to have last message ID as a type of, so I'll just copy this. This should be, this should be a type of message, right? That should be a type of message. Let's come back here to message, should be message, message, It should be message model, and this should be message model also. Then this chat too, the same thing. This should be chat model, right? Then what we are going to do here when you send a message, right, is, so let me see. Okay. So I would want to move this to a place where it should work fine. So I'll say app.use /message. Then I'll create a message controller. Okay, so I'll just first let me create the router. I'll just call this, I'll just duplicate this. I'll say message router, message router.js. Then inside here, I'll just have a function or a controller called, or a route called send only. Send and maybe view chat or something like that. I'll implement the rest later on. So I'll just write this here, req. Sorry, I'm breaking the rule. res. Maybe next. No, not next. Let's just leave it that way. Then try catch res.status of 500.send error. Do that, or I'll just say internal server error. And here, console.log error. Okay, so later on we'll still look at best practices on how to actually handle error more professionally. But then what we want to do here is when you send a message, right? We want to check if there is chat between these two people. So remember that so there's this chat part. So I want to do this. I want to say const chat, or let's say my chat should be equals to chats. Maybe this is going to give me a recommendation. Chat model, yeah. So this is going to be async and wait. So what I'm trying to do is I want to first check if I have a chat with that person and that person has a chat with me. If not, I have to create it. So chat model dot find. So before we even go into that, we want to do this. We'll have a to which we are sending to. We have a message and in our request.body. Then we'll say chat model dot find one where me, which is me that is sending the message to that person, is req dot decoded dot user ID, and the person I'm sending it to, right? So which means the other person, right? Let me break this down here. And the other person, is the to I'm sending it to, right? Then you also want to check if the person has a chat with me. So you would say where me is toe and the toe is me. You flip it. So you might want to do this. So you want to say the other person's chart. So you might want to do this. Then you say, if there is no chat, which means there's no chat between me and that person, right? There's no chat between me and that person. Then you can do this. So instead of this, you could say default should be null. It's because, and in the first place, okay. So we can do this. I'll just say my chart dot create. That dot create. Then another thing you might want to do is you might want to create the chart also. You might want to say const chart or message, sorry, or created message should be equals to await message model dot create. So I want to see my messages. So the user IDs. So the user IDs the user ID is going to be this. Then the sender is going to be me because I'm the one sending that message. So the sender will be me. The message will be this message. The files is going to, I can skip that actually. So this is me creating that message. This is me first creating the message. Right after creating the message, the next thing I want to do is I want to create the chat between me and that person in case if it is my first time messaging that person. So I would say the last message ID, right? In fact, another thing I might want to do here is I might want to do something like maybe message status. Message status could be, but that will require that I will then implement that message status, but that will be maybe in another class because that is going to take a whole lot of time too. So this chart now, right? Let's come back to this chart. So the last message ID is going to be created message dot underscore ID. Then what else am I supposed to send? So contains files, depending. So contains files could be, so this is the way to do it. You say contains files should be if so you could do something like this. You could say files. So you can say something like if files dot length is greater than 0, because I'm taking it that files is going to be an array. So if these files, right, the array of files is like more than 1, like which means there's a file inside here, then contains files should be should be that. Okay, wait, what am I doing? Should be create, right? Okay, sorry. What am I doing? Sorry, this should be here. Sorry. This should be here, right? So if it contains that, so that's if it doesn't exist, right? That's if this doesn't exist actually. Uh-uh. I can't tab again. Oh, I'm trying to use my tab button, but okay. I think I can use that to arrange it. Then else if the chart already exists, if that chart that I'm finding already exists, then I want to do something like this. I want to say chart model dot find. So dot find by ID. Then the ID is going to be create message or created message dot underscore ID. Then I would remove these two. The last message is going to be that, then contents files is going to be that. Then I'll also do that same thing for the other person. So I'll just do this. So I'll say if this doesn't exist, then me would be to, while to would be me, right? But if so if the other person exists, then the other person's chart model, which would be the other person's charts. Okay, so okay, I'll also do this for the same for the person, but the chart I'm going to edit is going to be, this is actually a bit confusing now. So we have that we are finding oh, sorry, this is supposed to be my chart dot underscore ID, not created message dot underscore ID. So the other person's chart would be the other person's chart dot underscore ID. The created message would be the that created message. And then the file contents will be that file. Then we can just return a response that maybe message sent. Every of my thing I like using message sent, and then you want to do this, you say res dot io dot abi dot socket dot to. You want to send it to the to value, then you now say dot emit send message. Then the message itself would be the message. So apart from this, you can have two other routes. So you can say router.get to get your own list of chats or something. So you can say chats RQ REQRES next, and then you would say let me just say chats equals to await chats model dot find. I'll use find here. Find where me is equals to req dot decoded dot user ID. Then I would want to populate the person I'm chatting with, the other person I'm chatting with. So I would say dot populate the other person. I want to populate the other person. Then I want to remove his password because I don't want that to come. Then I'll return that chat. Then messages, I would also do similar thing. So I'll say router dot get / messages. Then here I would say messages should be equals to await message model dot find, and let me check the criteria I want to find them by. So the message, what should be the criteria for my message? Okay, so this is what I will then do. I'll say where user IDs I'll now say in so I'll say req dot decoded dot user ID. So now let me explain this in. What you're saying is this, since this is an array, you want to find messages where your ID is in that array. So if there are two IDs, your ID should be one of the IDs in that array of IDs. Then it will return the message. Or no. So now this will return every message, right? And that's not what you want. You want it to return a message between you and another person. So you can do something like this. You could say that should be equals to req.body. Then you say maybe the other person, something like that. You say the other person the other person. So you want to say where this or that. So where this two is contained in that that user ID. So you want to do this. So then you then say res.send then you say messages. So we've typed a whole lot of things so far, and we've not even been testing while we're doing them. So let's start testing. So let's go back to Postman. Let's make this person user one. I'll just call him user one. While I'll call this person user two. Then let me try to log in. Okay, let me just use let me use the headers I gave them already. So this one has its own header. I'll use that for user one. Right? Remember that I made it that it doesn't actually expire. Then user two. Also come here and give user two. Same. And so let's see, did I configure my Postman well? I'm not sure. Sorry, my VS Code. What I wrote on my VS Code, did I configure it well? I'm not sure. Let me check it. So first, we have a new seat. So I didn't do this well. We have a new route here. This is router. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll come to my app.js. I think I have to close this too. I'll come to my app.js. I'll just duplicate one of these. I'll call it message router. Call this let's copy it and paste here, message router. Then I'll also come here and name it message router. So let's go back to VS Postman. Then let's see how we can actually test this out and it works. Okay. So this would be message/send. This would be a post request. So let me go to that message router. So we have message, and we have files. So files will just be an empty files, would be an empty array. Let's see. I'm not sending it to just ID. I'm not just sending it to an ID. So let me check from MongoDB who has that email, Upok Junior. So I think that's the first user. So I want to send it to this person, right? And let's see. So something crashed. Okay, so let's come back to VS Code. Let's see what happened. So it's saying Mongo server error, cannot do exclusion field, contains files in inclusion projection. Okay, okay. So where is this actually? Where is the complaint coming from? Cannot do this in that and that and that and that, and the whole stack trace. So how do we trace this error now? Cannot do exclusion field, contains files. So where are we using contains files? Here, right? Let's check our chat model. This contains files of boolean, right? Okay. Uh, hmm. So what's this trying to say? Oh, okay. Type of boolean default is false. Okay. Then what am I doing here? So I'm comparing if the length is greater than 0. If it's greater than 0, it should return a true. If it's less than 0, it should return a false. Uh, that's for the chat model. Contains files. Okay. So we have two message and files. So let's see, we are actually going to trace this. Where is it coming from actually? So if we check the stack trace carefully, we should see where it's coming from. So this MongoDB, 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 MongoDB R. So in the Postman, I send it as an array, right? And here, so let me check this message model. Let me see. Message model is an array of files, no doubt. That's correct. But in here, this contains files is actually a boolean, right? And what I'm trying to do is I'm comparing if the file's length is greater than 0, then it should return a true. But if it's less than 0, it should return a false. So this is the same thing as doing this. If it's greater than 0, it should return a true. Then else it should return a false. It's the same thing. It's actually the same. It's the same thing actually. So let's see. Let me test this. Let me test it this way. If it's still going, if it's going to give the same issue. R. Okay, so I think let me just remove this as a whole. Let me remove it as a whole. This is for chat model. Let me remove it in this one also. Oh, I actually see why. Sorry. I've actually seen the issue. I've seen the issue. I've seen the issue. Sorry. So this is one thing. I am including I'm not just finding by ID, but it's taking this to be a projection. So I'm supposed to say find by ID and update. there. Then also here, I'm also supposed to say find by ID and update, because I'm passing something I want to update. Okay, I'm not just passing these ones for just passing sake. Like, I want to update something. So that's where the issue was. Not easy, but it will be easy. Okay, so what you're asking, what is the projection? So the projection is what I showed you at the other earlier as a select. So that projection is saying, okay, these are the number of things, or this is what should be included in the request or in the query, right? You're returning back, like MongoDB is returning to you. That's what is a projection actually. So let me try to send this her, and it still gives me an issue. Did I save my file? Okay, so it's giving this error that rest.socket.to is not a function. So see it there, it's saying rest.to is not a function. So let's come back here. What did we name it? So let's check. Oh, it's request.socket, not rest.socket. So let's come back here. Where is it? So here we are to use req.socket, not rest.socket. That was our only offense. And mind you, you can pass an array of objects to this to. Sorry, an array of strings, which are the IDs you want to send things to. Not you can pass a single string or an array of strings, which are the IDs of the people you want to send the request to or the message to. So let's come back here. Let's come back here and send this message. What is going on? So it's saying req.socket.to is not a function. So let me see req.socket. So let me see req.socket, right? req.socket. So I think, okay, guys, see, I actually know the issue. So this is the reason why you have to like test and debug your code before you submit. So this is what I did. All these routes, okay, all these routes you're seeing here come before I even do this. See, they are up here. And then this is where I'm now assigning socket.io to the IO server. So which means I'm to take this up and to take it up before this part. So I'm supposed to put them here. So with this now, I have added them to the request object. I've added sockets to the request object before this other route are initialized. So once I do that, I can then come back to my postman and then test again. Okay, so it's saying message sent. Oh, and I didn't remember to connect these people. I hope they are not actually angry with me. So let me come back. Let me say user one is sending user two a message. So let me do that. Message sent. Let's see. I think one of them should actually. Okay, so this user gets a hello, right? User. So which means user one is this person. So which means I should copy this to user two instead. Should copy that to user 2. Should copy that to user 2. While this would be user 1 then. So I would come back here, copy this. So what I'm simply doing is I want to send a message from user 1 to user 2 should have that message. So if I come back and I say, hello, we come to user 2. User 2 has the message, hello. User 2 can respond with hi and send it. Sorry. So what did I use here? So I'll send that message sent. So if user 1 comes back, user 1 sees hi. User 1 can decide to say, how are you? Message sent. And user 2 is going to receive the how are you? And user 2 can decide to say, I'm fine. So user 2 responds to user 1 telling him I'm fine, and he receives it. Now, let's see the chart of user 1. So let's switch this to get. Let's switch this to charts. Let's send that. So you see that user 1 is chatting with this other person. Okay, what is going on here? The other person is still me. The other person is still me. So which means there's a bug in our code somewhere. So let's go back and fix that bug. Let's go back and fix that bug. There's a bug somewhere in my code. Where is it? So let's check. When we're creating charts, right? So we said we are creating charts where me is okay. We are creating charts where this is that and okay. Me is to and okay. Wait though. Let's not be that I'm sending a request. I'm sending a message to myself, thinking I'm sending it to somebody else. I think that's what is going on. Not I think, that is actually what is going on. I'm sending a message to myself, thinking I'm sending it to the other person. So how do I know that? How do I know that? Now, see, this is a simple way for you to know if you are sending a message to yourself or you're sending a message to somebody else. Just do this. Just console.log this. You say me should be equals to req.decoded.user id. Then to should be to. If the me and the to, if the value of me, sorry, if the value of me and to match, then it means you're actually sending a message to yourself. Okay. So let me just go back to Postman and connect the two users and then try to send a message. So let's see. So if I send a message from user 1 and sorry, let me send that message. This send, and this would be a post request. Okay, so this is me. Okay, and this is the other person I'm sending the message to. Okay, so I'm sending a message to a different person. So then what is happening here? What is happening? So I'm creating a chat where me is this person. Okay, so wait, let's come back here. How am I getting chats? Okay, sorry. So when you're querying to get a chat, you're not just querying to get like any chat that me is actually. Wait, wait. Sorry guys, I want to be sure about this. So when you're creating a chat where me is you, and then the other person is this other person, right? So if you want to get, you're going to get chats where me is this person, because the other person is going to also get chats where the person is that particular person. Okay, let me clear the database actually. Let me actually clear the database. Because the other ones we're sending that we're trying to test, those ones also went through. So they could be the ones confusing us now. So I'm deleting all messages I've sent before now. Then I'm also deleting all chats. Okay, beautiful. So now let's go back to Postman. Let's go back to Postman message. Let me see. Then let me send how are you, and let me uh uh so let me send I'm fine from this other side. I'm fine. Know that user one actually gets the I'm fine. Good, good. Then let's come back here to user one and get user one's chat. So I'll say chats. This would be a get request. Exactly. So this is me. This is my own ID. Me that I send, that's the person chatting. The other person I'm chatting with. So this is an array. This is the other person I'm chatting with. This is his own ID, right? So if I'm fetching a list of chats, right? This is what I will want to show. The person's name, if the person has a profile picture, I will show what I'm getting as results when I query chats. And query chats, the me would be me that is querying the chat, like me that's looking for chats. Then if I want to get messages between me and this person, then I'll say, oh, okay, this is this person's ID. Then I have to come and say messages. Is it message or messages I saved it as? Okay, messages. And then in messages, we'll have something like the other person. We'll have something like the other person. The other person is going to be this ID. So now I want to fetch chat between me and the other person, this Victor Peter, this Okop Junior. I want to fetch chat between me and that person. So once I do that, you see, it then returns the how are you that I sent and the I am fine that was responded. So now, how do you know if the chat was sent by you or was sent by that person, the other person? Now, the way for you to know that is you will then check Oh, sorry. You can't actually use body for get request. Sorry. I was carried away by that. So this is what you rather want to do in your message. You want to say messages / the other person. / the other person request dot params. Okay. And I remember we were supposed to do query string, but we couldn't do it today again. So sorry about that. Then, so if we do this, chat with the other person, then we are checking where the user IDs contains that person and our own chats. Then let's go back to Postman. It will still shall give us the same results because those are like the only two people in this chat app that we just built. So instead of this, right? This is another thing about Postman. So when you say messages, you can say messages / that ID, or you can say messages / something like the other person. Then the value of the other person, you then put it inside here. It's still the same thing as putting this ID in here. Still exactly the same thing. So you see that now it is returning the, oh, how are you? And then it's returning the I'm fine, right? You can order this by date, depending on how you want to show it to the user. Now, how do you want to know if you're the one that sent it? So now, if your own user ID and the sender ID match, it means it is you that sent that message. So you can show it maybe on the right. But if your ID, I remember that your ID is inside your JWT, your JSON Web Token, and you can use, there's a library on front and you can use to decode the JSON Web Token, even when you don't have, decoding doesn't really need you to have the secret key, right? Or the JWT key. It's when you're verifying that you need the JWT key. So there is a library you can use to decode, right? The value of your JWT. So you can decode that value and compare that value with this sender value. So if that value and this sender value match, it means you're the one that sent the message. But if they don't match, then it means it's the other person that sent the message. Okay. So I guess I'll have to stop here, right? I'll really need to stop here because in our next class, I think we'll actually go over everything we've done in this class because this is actually a whole lot of information also. I know it's actually a lot of information pushing out in a very short time. And you guys might need to rewatch this video to get it. Oh, okay. So sorry about that. You're just staring at your screen. Okay. So once you watch it again, you can pause and try and do what I'm also doing. You would get the hang of it. You understand how it goes actually. Okay. All right. So I don't know if I should any question. I was contemplating if I should ask. No. Next. So the next task won't choke actually. It won't. Right. I promise it won't. Right. So I'll yeah, that's everything I want to say. Is there any other question? Is there anybody that has any question? Anybody? Okay. When you say class repo, you're referring to Tree of Life, right? Okay. All right. I will do so. Um, I will do so. I'll update the Tree of Life actually. Sorry, I haven't updated for a while, but I'll do so. Is there any other question? Any other question? Anybody wants to ask any other question? And so also anybody that has not graded, right? I will actually grade that person. So that's all for today's class. And thank you for coming. See you in the next one.